Some big news has just come out about Ripple's intentions with some of the assets that have been left over from the collapse of FTX. The FTX exchange, of course, who is now going through bankruptcy proceedings, which include 130 additional companies that were owned or associated with Sam Bankman-Fried and the FTX exchange. So in this video, we're going to review what Ripple is actually going after with FTX and what Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, had to say about his phone call with Sam Bankman-Fried. Also, we're going to be taking a look at the Ripple versus the SEC case because amicus briefs have now been filed. I'm going to tell you which one missed the deadline and what one of the latest amicus briefs is now pointing out to the judge about why they feel that XRP should not be labeled a security, and it's very interesting. And right now, the crypto market seems to be on hold as really nobody knows what's going on. Price predictions, of course, are nearly useless, especially if you look at the macroeconomics of what is going on in the United States and around the world. However, according to Brad Garlinghouse, there is one thing that can make the cryptocurrency world much stronger, and I'm going to tell you about it in this video. Hey everyone, my name is Randy. Welcome back to the Late Night Grind. Right now on this channel, we are covering the Ripple versus the SEC case, as well as other cryptocurrency news, investment markets, and personal finance. So if any or all those topics interest you, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Join the Late Night Grind community. Also, don't forget to hit the bell notification icon. That way YouTube will send you a notification when I release a new video. So if you do that, as well as smash the thumbs up button and watch this video all the way to the end, those are some of the best things you can do to support a YouTube channel. So if you do that, I greatly appreciate it. All right, guys, let's jump into it. So there's now a lot of headlines that is going on in the business world, specifically in the cryptocurrency world and social media world, one of which has to do with Donald Trump. His account is now back on Twitter, which basically set Twitter on fire. And it's very interesting if you want to go on Twitter and check out some of the new trending hashtags. It's entertainment at its finest. All right, so now I want to start off by talking about what Ripple is looking at with FTX in terms of taking over some of its assets. Now, this really isn't anything new. This happened when Celsius went under several months ago. Ripple was looking at some of Celsius assets when they had declared bankruptcy. Nothing really much came of that. However, it looks like with a lot of these other blockchain companies, specifically one as big as FTX, Ripple is always keeping its eye out for some fire sales on some good assets. So what were they looking for? And according to Brad Garlinghouse, what did he talk about in his phone conversation with Sam Bankman-Fried? Well, initially, Sam Bankman-Fried was still trying to save FTX at the time. He was trying to round up investors looking to save FTX. And so, of course, he made a phone call to Brad Garlinghouse, knowing that Ripple has loads of cash and are a debt-free company, and you get the idea. And initially, Brad Garlinghouse said, listen, there's probably companies you own or companies you're associated with in which Ripple would have some interest in acquiring, specifically looking at companies that service business partners. And that makes a lot of sense since, of course, Ripple has the on-demand liquidity system. It would be a natural on-ramp to using the ODL and, of course, using XRP. And actually, some of the companies that are listed, some of the 130 companies that are listed in FTX bankruptcy filings include FTX Express Pay, which of course, any payments companies, Ripple is definitely having their eyes on in terms of expanding their customer base for the ODL. And Brad Garlinghouse did say that after that phone call, he did feel like kind of the same thing that Elon Musk felt when Elon Musk had originally talked to Sam Bankman-Fried, and that is his BS meter was just kind of going off because what Sam Bankman-Fried was saying versus what was in the news and what was being tweeted out just didn't match. So regardless, a lot of these companies in bankruptcy, Brad Garlinghouse did say that, of course, they're still keeping their eyes open and their options open in terms of going after some of those assets, but being in bankruptcy, of course, makes it a much tougher process to go through. And of course, as the FTX collapse unravels and a lot more companies continue to file for bankruptcy, Ripple, which of course is debt-free and flush with cash, going to be looking at picking off some of those assets and some of those companies that could help expand their business network. And finally, with the FTX case unraveling seemingly by the day, there's just a whole bunch of horrible news that is coming out about what Sam Bankman-Fried has been doing, his ties and who he was actually tied to, including some of the $40 million that he was now tied to down in Washington, D.C., giving Democratic political leaders some of the biggest donations that they've ever seen, some of which have went to the CFTC And according to one person writing an article, that's pretty much the going rate if you want to be kept out of jail and have glowing reviews written about you, even as you take down a multi-billion-dollar company. And oh, by the way, it just appears that they found earlier today that Sam Bankman-Fried tried to withdraw $228 million worth of Ethereum to himself. All right, so now let's move to the Ripple versus the SEC case, because we're going to be talking about amicus briefs. As of right now, there are 15 pro-Ripple amicus briefs that have been entered into the case. 2 for the SEC, although one just missed their deadline, so it appears there will only be 1 pro-SEC amicus brief and, of course, 1 neutral. I wanted to specifically talk about one that was just entered by Valhill Capital. And Valhill Capital, which is a venture capital firm run by Jimmy Valley, he's been doing a lot of interviews and a lot of videos that you can find on Twitter, specifically talking about what this case against Ripple and essentially against XRP is doing to the rest of the business world and the reason that they're filing an amicus brief. And it was a very brief that Valhill Capital entered, but the one thing that they talked about was specifically the businesses and the business concepts and innovations that are using XRP as part of their business process. And he's saying that this case, of course, is hurting those businesses and those products, because if you create a product that uses XRP or wraps around the use case of XRP, or even a business venture that wraps around the use case of XRP, right now, and it has been very difficult, according to Jimmy Valley, to round up investors, because they say, yeah, even though your product looks really great, the fact that there is no regulatory clarity on XRP makes it difficult for them to pull the trigger to invest. And so he is talking about the fact that there is a lot of other companies, a lot of other businesses that have created products and networks and businesses as a whole that relied on the XRP ledger and the XRP use case that are essentially now being hurt. They're now being suppressed because of this ongoing case. And in their statement, in their amicus brief, they said to the judge that basically there's so much harm that is being caused to these businesses that Valhill Capital, if the judge were to side against Ripple or decide that XRP is a security, that Valhill Capital would actually seek redress, which basically means they would go after money and damages caused by that decision from the SEC. In other words, they cause so much damage and so much monetary damage to your business that they would actually file suit. That would be a fun one to cover. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe we're only waiting on one more amicus brief, which of course is due in a couple of days. And as this case comes to a close, hopefully in the spring of 2023, of course is what the speculation is, we're definitely going to be seeing some fireworks in terms of what the rest of the cryptocurrency market could do. Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, says their case with the SEC is essentially upholding the rest of the crypto space in terms of its regulatory clarity, in terms of its galvanizing the rest of the cryptocurrency world together, because it really shouldn't be Ripple versus the SEC. It should be seen as the SEC versus cryptocurrency. And Brad Garlinghouse says a win for Ripple would be a massive win for the rest of the cryptocurrency world, and I 100% agree. Now, of course, there's some maximalists on several other sides that might disagree with that. But ultimately, when you're talking about a regulatory status, there's a lot of things that go into it that most people don't think about. And specifically in this case, of course, if the SEC gets their way and gets their power grab over the cryptocurrency world, well, there is going to be a lot of harm done. And not just to the investors of cryptocurrencies, but to the actual businesses and business models that revolve around the use case and application and utility of cryptocurrencies. So if you want to have a conversation with me about that, you can always follow me on Twitter. That link is in the description below, as always. And if you're new to this channel, I don't have comments on this channel anymore because according to my analysis, 93% of them were spam, scams, or bots, and I don't want my audience subjected to that. So you can go and follow me on Twitter. We can have an actual conversation there. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end, for smashing that thumbs up button, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next video.